And welcome to another episode of Bossing English with Mr. F. Today, we're going to look at how to compare the way poets present power in My Last Duchess by Robert Browning and one of the poems in Power Conflict. Now, this is a huge poem, and that can be very disturbing and off-putting for many students, but there are always easy ways into the poem at the start, at the end, and just one or two key moments, and that's all you need to focus on. So we'll show you how to do that. Okay, let's crack on. Right, so I'm going to be looking at language, structure, form, and context, and every time I do that, I'm going to be trying and link it to the meaning of the poem, and by meaning here, that's really the question keyword of power and how it's being presented. So let's have a look. That's My Last Duchess painted on the wall. Okay, that's my way into the poem. It's the first line. The possessive pronoun my shows the speaker's controlling nature in the relationship from the very first line. I'm already dealing with power. I choose never to stoop shows the Duke's dominating nature and his refusal to lower himself to her lower level, the level of his previous wife, even to educate, quote, lessen her. He's not interested in improving her. He sees that as being beneath him, and you could link this to status and power. I gave commands. This is ambiguous. What commands exactly? We think it may have been putting an end to her life, but we're not sure. But it shows the extent of his power, and this is reinforced by the end stopping, something that's quite rare in this poem. And that semicolon here mimics how her life is suddenly paused at his bidding, and finally the result of his command is revealed. All smiles stopped together. So that happens immediately after we get that kind of pause and then reveal. So the totality of his dominance is revealed in all its sinisterness. Status and power could also be seen in this idea of the gift of a 900 years old name. So you could link that as well. All right, so that's my poem A. What about my poem B? Well, I'm going to go with Ozymandias. I think there's lots to say about power in Ozymandias, and it treats the idea of power differently and similarly. And I think it's good to compare and try and do similar and then pivot to difference, because that maybe gives you a more thorough comparison. This is similar to Ozymandias in that there is a similar sense of self-aggrandizement. He calls himself the King of Kings, like the Duke's attachment to his 900-year-old name. However, this is different because here power is not at the individual level of a relationship between two people, but ruthlessly political and powerful. And the art, his vast statue, is a projection of that power so that other, quote, mighty men would fear him. The Duke's control of the Duchess in My Last Duchess through her portrait is deeply personal, almost like revenge, though he too seems to delight in demonstrating the control he had over her and continues to have over her to visitors. Just check how we're doing for time. Okay, right, let's move on to structure. The poem's male speaker is that's our narrator, and that is, binds the poem together, has doubly control of the woman's reputation, both in how he represents her to the visitor, his verbal portrait in his dramatic monologue, and in the power to reveal or hide her portrait behind curtains. There are other things I could say structurally, the use of end stopping and enjambment, the use of caesuras, such as here, which we'll come to later, and the way those kind of key moments of slowing down the dramatic monologue, pausing, little asides, I think would be useful things to talk about there structurally. Finally, let's compare that to poem B. This is similar to Ozymandias in that both male speakers are deliberately undermined by the way the poets present them through clever use of irony. However, this is different because we hear the Duke's words from his own mouth. He condemns himself in a way, whereas Shelley uses a double distancing device of a frame narrative, a traveller whose words are being reported secondhand by the poem's speaker, suggesting that negative commentary on this tyrannical ruler is still problematic. This could also link to Shelley's radical political views and the entire poem being a way of commenting on his present political moment in the 1800s. Okay, finally, we're on to form, which many students find difficult. So go for the obvious stuff. The use of dramatic monologue here allows us to hear directly the Duke's pompous, self-regarding voice and the self-important airs he has. We hear the pretense at delicacy in those interruptions I mentioned earlier, the use of caesura with the dashes to break up his monologue. how shall I say, as he sullies the Duchess's reputation. So he's pretending to be delicate when in actual fact he's damning her with his critique. Right, poem B. Well, this is really different to Shelley's radical use of the sonnet form as a political vehicle, with its innovative use of a nested dialogue, doubly distancing the poet from the political commentary he is engaged in. If there is love in this sonnet, it is perhaps Shelley's radical love for freedom from tyranny, which we also see in poems such as The Mask of Anarchy and some of the political pamphlets that he wrote. Okay, hopefully that has been useful for you. If you found that useful, smash that like button, do something appropriate to the subscribe button, and I will see you presently for more Felicity anon.